It's the final goodbye to a beloved monarch. After 70 years on the throne, a vaunted valediction for Queen Elizabeth II on the day she's laid to rest.
She was an amazing woman, 70 years.
There's a certain buzz in the atmosphere. There's a moment of history happening, and I think people are really excited to be part of it.
It's very British, and nobody's going to do this better than us. To see all the pageantry, all the bands, I'll never see it in my lifetime again.
A day of remembrance for so many here in the UK, mourners lining up by the thousands, taking in an historic moment and sharing their grief with their fellow citizens and the world. The service somber and solemn, with speakers taking turns paying respects to the Queen, including Prime Minister Liz Truss in just her second week on the job.
Thanks be to God.
The sermon given by the Archbishop of Canterbury, whose benediction exalted the Queen's many accomplishments.
Her late Majesty famously declared on a 21st birthday broadcast that her whole life would be dedicated to serving the nation and Commonwealth. Rarely has such a promise been so well kept.
Tens of thousands gathered at Hyde Park, a majestic day of rituals.
People are moved by a moment, and I think we've seen the United Kingdom certainly struck by losing somebody who I think many of us thought would never die.
The guest list, a distinguished affair including President Biden and the First Lady. Also among the crowd, dignitaries, heads of state, hundreds of foreign leaders, and almost 200 everyday citizens honored for their forms of public service. And of course, the Queen's beloved corgis. Outside, the crowd sprawling across the procession route, and a security presence unlike anything the UK has ever seen, London's largest ever police operation. The royal family all present. King Charles III honoring his mother, leaving a handwritten note on her coffin. The message reading, "In loving and devoted memory, Charles R." The procession moving from Westminster Abbey to Hyde Park, passing by crowds of well-wishers who cheered after the Queen's body went by.
God save the King!
Then a final rendition of God Save the Queen, Britain's national anthem, as the royal hearse rolled out of Wellington Arch. Before reaching the Queen's final resting place in St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle.
For most Brits and for many people around the world, the royal family are a touchstone of our own lives. They reflect our own lives. There are families, so there are weddings and there are funerals, and we reflect where we are at that moment in time in our own lives. And they were there wanting to pay tribute.
Leading up to today, thousands stood for hours to pay their respects, to catch a glimpse of history.
I feel like it's the end of an era.
And you're particularly wistful about the idea that there will be only kings for a while, right?
Yeah. So it's like an end. Yeah, it's an end of, like Grace said, an end of an era. So like we'll never have any more females on the throne again. And yeah, I mean, it's been quite nice having like a woman, in power as well, because we're like a family of girls. So.
One mother whose family came from Barbados paying respect to the Queen while facing a hard truth, the legacy of the Commonwealth and colonialism.
But when my family came here, my parents, obviously we were part of the Commonwealth then. I think that history is the past. A lot of things happened. We learned a lot of things. We can't forget it, and we understand it and know it, but we can't just let it be a huge burden.
I do think it's possible to be both aware of the colonial legacy and the pain caused, and still have respect for the modern royal family. We've seen this with the huge number of people of colour queuing for hours to see the Queen lying in state.
Now the spotlight turns to King Charles, and in turn Prince William, the heir to the throne, and his wife Catherine, Princess of Wales.
I think Charles does know that part of his job is going to be laying the foundations for William's reign one day. And perhaps he will occupy a more transitional role, kind of laying the groundwork for the next great dynasty of royals, which is likely to be under William and Kate.
As a nation says their final goodbyes to their monarch after a remarkable 7 decades. of service.
As she leaves us and goes to heaven, the one thing she'll want to know is that her father was proud of her. And I think he will have been, and I bet you he says to her that he was.
And with that, the end of the Elizabethan era, which also marks the end of a remarkable love story. The Queen and Prince Philip finally laid to rest together. But her first love, perhaps, was the United Kingdom. And today, her subjects paid tribute with a poignant and profound final farewell. To rest together.